जुलाई 23 जुलाई को आपका डेट था।
ओम जी महाराज, ओम जी महाराज, यहाँ आप लोगों की निजी जिंदगी डिस्कस कर रहे हैं।
दीपा शर्मा की बात कर रहा हूँ। इन्होंने खुद अपने ससुर पे यौन शोषण का आरोप लगा करके।
क्या बात है? ओम जी महाराज, ओम जी महाराज, ओम जी महाराज, राखी जी, राखी जी, दीपा जी,
मकान लिखवा रही है। ये किस मुंह से राधे माँ की बुराई कर सकती है? पहले अपने आप को तो सुधारे। खुद ब्लैक में अपने पति को
महाराज, ये मुझे लगता है
अपने पति से अलग रह रही है। जो और हाँ, हेलो हेलो, मैं अरे तू क्या मारेगी? तू क्या मारेगी मुझे? अरे तू क्या मारेगी? ये हाथ थोड़ी समझ।
That's right. For those of you wondering what Newsmax television used to be in the early days, we were able to uncover the video just for you. And oh yeah, as a matter of fact, it was also used as the primer at OANN and another station which we may bring up later on somewhere in the conversation. Don't you wish that's what it could be on all of these network television shows? Smack them around a little bit. Go ahead, get physical. Imagine the ratings. We could do that here, but we're all kind of separated by miles, so we can't, but I'm working on it. One of these days we'll be able to punch everybody through a virtual screen and we'll make fortunes. We'll all make fortunes in the media, which is all we're in it for, is the money and the cocktails. Never forget that. Hi once again, everybody. I'm Ed Berliner. Welcome into a fabulous Friday here on the Free for All. It is usually, and I will apologize right up front, everybody who has done or followed any of my shows over the decades and centuries, it seems sometimes, knows that I always have Hawaiian Shirt Friday. Again, I have forgotten to tell everybody, and even I kind of went a little light on it. I did not go the Tropical Shirt Friday. It is totally my fault. I promise that by the time we come around next week, we'll be doing Tropical Shirt Friday. And the reason I do it is because it gets to be frightening what some people wear. And all you have to do is go down to Fort Lauderdale Beach, spend $20, and you can buy a really nasty shirt. And it's perfect. So don't worry about it if you got it. Oh, yeah, and by the way, if you have cocktails while watching the show, please go right ahead. I unfortunately had a lot to do before the show, so I did not imbibe. But if you'd like to, yes, please. We actually encourage it. So let's go ahead and get started. Let me bring in the quartet, if you will. See, we don't call them panels here. I hate calling it a panel because by the time it all figures out and finishes out, it's all just a quartet here, and that's how we roll. So let's go ahead and bring in first a great friend of mine. I worked with him at a network which shall not be named because we're trying both to excise it from our beings and never have to mention it again. It's sort of like going to hell. We've been there. We don't ever want to think about it again. He is a New York Times best-selling author, which, of course, he will tell you about. He wrote a book on Obamacare. Let's just stop right there, okay? Just put the knives away. Everything's okay. The guy's really good. I vouch for him. He knows he knows his medical better than anybody because on the show we always used to talk about medical issues and medical things. He's not a doctor. He just plays one on TV. It is a pleasure to welcome Nick Tate, who is rocking a really old man beard in the years since I've seen him. How you doing, Nickster?
Great, Ed. Good to see you, my friend. I didn't bring the tropical shirt, but if you look, I do have sailboats on my shirt, so I'm halfway there. I'm with you.
Okay,
and I am enjoying a cocktail, so cheers to you, my friend.
I would never expect you to have anything but that beer in your hand, and I kind of failed on it because, as I said, Sam Adams is not making the red anymore, and I'm pissed off. Make that IPA again. It was my favorite, will you please? And I'll go out and buy a lot more. Let me also then welcome, because as you all know, I try to bring a little bit of levity to this show. And we've had stand-up comics, comedians, writers on the show. All excellent. All excellent. But I got a lot of comics who don't want to appear on the show because they're afraid of getting away from their material. So it's a matter of finding really good stand-up comics, and I found one who can basically do anything, anytime, and who can ad-lib off just about anything because she is called the Cougar of Comedy. You have seen her, you have enjoyed her, and she's going to get back to traveling the country and getting back out there hopefully very soon, on a regular basis, because we need the comedy out there. It is a pleasure to welcome the Cougar. Jilly Reel joins us on Free for All. Jilly, good day, young lady.
Thank you for having me.
Well,
And
it's always nice to
wow,
be.
what an intro to live up to.
Well, it's always nice to be had. You know that as a as a performer, we all know that one way or the other. See, there you go.
Fair enough. I walked right into that.
You did, but that's okay. Don't fear though, because as I've told many of my comedian friends, don't try to keep up with a comic. It's the worst thing. It's the dumbest thing you can possibly do, especially if they're live. Let them go. I'm not a comic. I just play one on TV. And finally, let me welcome into the quartet a gentleman who I also met through many of the interviews that I did over the years. But before I did that, I used to read him all the time at Newsday. He appears on Fox as a commentator there. Hang on, put away the knives. Okay, really, it's okay. Because he wrote a book which has, to me, the greatest title of any book anywhere. The Party's Over, How the Extreme Right Hijacked the GOP, and I Became a Democrat. Boom! Ellis Hennigan joins us on the show today from New York. How you doing, Ellis?
It's good to see you guys. My goodness, what do you? All you do is go around interviewing people, and then you collect them and bring them back years and decades later. Is that how this works?
Well, yeah. I mean, you're all of a sudden you're saying it like it's a bad thing. Of course. Look, what I do is I use working at really crappy places, Newsmax, and what I do is I meet really great people, and then I bring them forward into really much better environments because this is better.
Well, I'm definitely in the category of lucky to be working at all. In that regard, I am very honored to be here with you, sir.
It's great to have you guys. We're going to have fun. Let's go ahead and get started. As everybody knows, we go ahead and start off with one from the host. So let's get right to it because this one is going to start things out, and there's going to be some fire in this one before all is done because this has absolutely got me smoked constantly. We are in the midst of a pandemic that simply will not go away, and it is getting worse. We have less than 50% of America that has been fully vaccinated. Barely 50% of America has received one dose. So here we are again, especially where I am and others are in Florida, where it is exploding, and we have a governor who says, no, don't worry about everything. No masks, you don't have to worry. You can go about your regular business. Now the government's getting involved, and finally it's a good thing because it's about time. If you own a business, if you work for the government, if you're in the military, I don't give a damn. Get vaccinated or walk. It's time. If you don't want to get vaccinated, you're fired. Just like this.
Here at Yale New Haven and at hospitals around the state, employees are being given a choice: get the COVID shot or lose your job. They have to decide about this soon. Several hospitals and healthcare systems making the vaccine mandatory for employees. Right now, about 20% of the hospital workforce in Connecticut is unvaccinated. That is especially troubling in pediatric units where kids under 12 still cannot get the vaccine. So there's the possibility of an unvaccinated worker infecting a patient. The bigger issue, of course, is to protect the workers. Connecticut is back up above 2% of COVID tests coming back positive, and the number of people hospitalized is creeping up too.
The healthcare workforce that's only 3/4 vaccinated isn't so helpful, and it also encourages the development of new variants that could even be more transmissible perhaps than the Delta variant.
And that's the big picture here. The more people who are vaccinated, the less likely the virus is to mutate again, possibly into a new variant against which the vaccines do not work. A lot of polls show people who are still refusing to get the shot say nothing is going to convince them to get it. That could mean a big chunk of hospital employees will decide to leave their jobs this fall. That's not good news either. There are exemptions to the vaccine mandate for religious and health reasons. Workers have until the end of September to get their shots. In New Haven, I'm Kent Pierce, News 8.
From WTNH in New Haven, Connecticut. Quartet, let's go ahead and get to this right now because this has been in my craw for quite some time. When there was a hospital in Texas where the hospital said to the employees there, you will get your shot or you will be fired. And then the workers came out, the health workers came out and said, no, we're going to bring our union into it. We're going to fight this every way we can. Listen to what that report just said. People walking into a hospital, medical professionals who are dealing in pediatrics with 12-year-old kids. And they're exposing them, potentially exposing them to what is a virus that may not kill you, but it could. And we're now hearing about all sorts of heart issues and various other problems with people who will be long haulers over the rest of their lives. It's incredibly stupid. You either get it or you're fired. Mr. Tate, I'm going to start with you because you are the guy who has written on medicine and we have been with a long time. This is, to me, abominable, and that's where you drop the line. I think Joe Biden, the president, is exactly right in what he is doing with government workers.
That's what it's going to take. A mandate is the only thing that's really going to work. I mean, I have a couple stories that I can tell you about. My wife and I go everywhere with a mask. I'm here in my room by myself with a mask in case somebody should come to the door. But my wife and I have not been to a restaurant to dine in since March of 2020. But we have gone in and picked up takeout. So not long ago, I went into one of our favorite restaurants here in South Florida to pick up takeout. And while I was there with my mask on, a guy is standing next to me with who I presume is his wife, older guy. Anyone who's older than me is an older guy, an old guy. And he says to me, you don't need to wear that. And I said, what do you mean? He said, well, there's no federal law, there's no state law, there's no local law. You don't have to do it. And I said two things to him. I said, well, first of all, I've been vaccinated, doubly vaccinated, and I'm not wearing it so much for me, although there are questions about the Delta variant. I'm wearing it to protect you and the young lady sitting next to you. That's the first thing. The second thing, what you're telling me is the only way you're going to wear a mask and by extension get a vaccine is if it's mandated and you're told you have to. So the same people who say, I don't have to get a vaccine, I don't have to wear a mask, I don't have to remain distant from my fellow man and woman, they're telling you they need the government to tell you what you have to do because you can't figure the shit out for yourself. Regulations and rules, as I've heard it said, are for those people who can't figure out what to do on their own when it's the right thing to do. Furthermore, I said, you're the kind of person who, if the government implemented a mandate or a workplace, you'd be the first one to say, you're violating my freedoms. So I come down on the idea that 612,000 Americans are dead. We've seen the biggest drop in life expectancy since World War II. What's it going to take? We know the people who have not been vaccinated are not going to get vaccinated in large numbers. A mandate's the only way.
And this all started in my conversation when it came down to some issues about members of the military, and I'm very close to members of the military. My dad is a proud veteran. The military saying that we're not going to get vaccinated, and I got into a raucous fight with a couple of veterans where I said, if you do not get vaccinated, you get a dishonorable discharge, you're off the government dole for the rest of your life, have a nice day. You should have seen the shock value in their faces when they realized they weren't going to get their pensions when this happened. I mean, that started a massive fight, but that's where I stand. Jilly, you're somebody, hang on one sec, Nick. Jilly, you're someone who you need to get out and perform. That's what you do. You need to get out, and if you can't, if this idiocy continues, you won't be able to make a living. You can't pay your bills because, let's face it, you can only do so many virtual shows. But if you can't get out there and do it, thanks to these knuckleheads, they're making a decision on your life, and they're telling you what you can and cannot do. That's infuriating to me.
I wish I made all my money in comedy, but
well, at least
come
it's a
on
good
now.
chance, yeah.
My apartment's pretty nice. Honestly, I maybe think it should be a little different for healthcare workers, but
Okay.
I'm vaccinated. But if you choose not to be, that's on you. And Thunderdome, survival of the fittest.
And again, it's the show, and I want other opinions. I mean, really, I'm strong about it, and I hear from you what I hear from a lot of people, where they say that the healthcare workers maybe should get a break. But the question then comes up is why? I mean, and look, if you have a heart condition or if you have a pre-existing condition, there's some people who can't get it. But would you be afraid if somebody was treating you or a loved one in a hospital and they were potentially COVID positive and were just spreading it everywhere?
Well, no, but
okay.
And like what I said is, I think a different bar should be held for hospital workers than the rest of the general public, is what I said.
Okay.
So I'm not opposed to that necessarily being something they need to do to protect everyone else. But when it comes to the general population, I have friends that aren't, and it's their choice. But you're not going to tell me to put a mask on again after I've been vaccinated. I've had fatigue. I'm tired. That's why I left LA, and I'm living in Miami because I actually like it here. And don't want to step on toes here, but I like, hey, let's get on with life. And I don't see people dropping dead in the streets. So I don't know. I think it's overhyped.
No, it's okay. And again, I we start this show out, and it's for everybody's opinion to throw in here because I want everybody to be able to say that, whatever they feel like. It's okay. We don't do the Fox News screaming at each other. Thank God. We're actually a lot more intelligent than that. Mr. Hennigan, let me come to you then. As somebody who has been in New York, and I know that you and I have talked about everything that's gone on in New York, and Christ, it's been a disaster in New York at some point, and they're basically only now seemingly coming back. What do you think on this?
Yeah, we've been the worst and we've been the best. Honestly, I mean, we got it before anybody else did. But then, New Yorkers really did pull together and wore the masks and did the distancing and really did bend that curve that all the experts were telling us we should. And I think like I say, we got hit hardest and first, but I think we've got frankly, a lot to be proud of here. I would say that I am living a little more dangerously than Nick is. I've been to restaurants, I've been inside to places. In recent times, I have stopped wearing a mask while I'm eating. I'm not anti-mask, but I'm probably living a little less dangerously than Jill is. I don't really buy the freedom argument. In general, I think we do have a right to live our own lives, but I don't think people have a right to infect me with a deadly disease. I think you don't have the freedom to do that, and we've litigated that stuff in court about whether kids can go to school without a measles or a mumps or a chicken pox vaccine and polio. The courts have decided very clearly, no, you don't have the right to do that and go infect other people. And I think COVID ought to be put on the list. The government can do some of it, but boy, private folks have a big role to play here. If you run a company, I wouldn't let anybody in who wasn't vaccinated. If you have a concert, make people show proof, because again, I just don't think the freedom extends so far as to give me a deadly disease. No, you don't have the freedom to do that, and I'm going to try to shame you out of it if I can't make the courts stop you from doing it.
Well, see, I guess maybe that's where I sit on this, because first of all, if you're the business owner, in my mind, if it's a private business, well, even if it's a public business sometimes, depending on what it is, you have the right to tell the employees what you can and cannot do with regard to infectious diseases. That's one of the biggest things that I've been falling on here. The other thing is, and I think you brought up the very good point, if you don't want to wear a mask, okay. If you don't want to do these things, okay, but you're affecting me, and you're affecting my family, and you're affecting who I am at that point, and you're affecting the possibility that you can then hurt somebody down the road. And to me, that's can't we all just get along? No, can't we all just at least have a little human care for everybody else? Because I wear the mask. If I don't wear the mask, why should it bother somebody so much? I mean, that's one of the things right now. Why are you wearing the mask for? Shut up! I'm wearing it because I want to. Why does it bother you so much? Here's what I want to do.
I mean,
Jilly would love this, because, hey, Jilly, from a comedy side of things, it'd be great if somebody said that and you walk up to them and go, why are you so ugly? I don't know what the answer would be. Ellis, you were saying something?
Yeah, I mean, you know the answer to that. I mean, because things are all so tribal and politicized today. People join a team, and one team is pro-mask and the other team is anti-mask, and it frees everybody from needing to think for themselves. It's one of the tragedies of the condition of America today, and we're paying a big fat human price for it right now.
Well, I think the issue too. I mean, to your both of your, actually all of your points. The question is not so much, do I have the right to decide for me what the risk is? If I decide to ride a motorcycle and not wear a helmet, that's on me. If I don't wear a seatbelt, that's on me. But if I decide to drink and drive, or text and drive, or do something that puts other people on the road at risk, do I have that right? Well, our government has said, no, you don't.
Well, see, hang on, and I'm gonna drop a dime in here on this one, because I'm a longtime motorcycle rider. I wouldn't ever get on a motorcycle without a helmet. I've seen what happens, but it doesn't just affect me. If I'm not wearing a helmet, or a hat, as we call it, as we bikers like to call it from time to time, if I'm not wearing a hat and I wreck and I kill myself, that's my responsibility. But at the same time, if I'm being a reckless son of a bitch and I'm screaming into somebody and I'm T-boning someone and I take someone with me because I was careless, that's on me too, as the killing of someone. And I'm going to drop another dime. The insurance rates that will skyrocket from all this, and it has in the past, where every time there's more accidents and every time, look, hey, what we haven't seen yet from all of this, I mean, let's be honest, everybody. Watch our health insurance rates go through the roof.
I was going to say, Ed, it might be a good thing. You can now get lower insurance rates if you get a flu vaccine, if you join a health club, if you join Weight Watchers, if you have a pre-existing condition like diabetes and you're managing it, controlling your weight, you can now get a discount. That's one of the things that came from Obamacare that was a positive. Watch what happens with COVID. It will drive, like nothing else will, people getting the vaccines. Because right now, I don't see people doing it because they think they're going to do it for their fellow man. But to your point, though, my right to throw a punch stops at the point at which my fist hits your nose. That's why you have to have a license to drive a car. You have to have a license to own a gun. There are regulations. The primary role of government, in my opinion, and I'm not alone here, is to protect the public. There is a role to play, and we are in extraordinary circumstances. We haven't seen a pandemic like this in 100 years. So I think the extraordinary measure of mandates, private and public, is in fact defensible. We've already seen the people who have already gotten vaccines are pretty much the only people who are going to get vaccinated. The only thing that's going to get those folks who've decided, I'm not getting a vaccine because my freedoms are being violated or they're afraid of the risks. And we can talk about some of the risk numbers if you like, comparison of risk of getting COVID and dying or getting the vaccine and dying. There are orders of magnitude different. But, that whole question of the freedom is crazy. We need to get on top of this pandemic. So these mandates, I think, are the only thing that's going to drive people to get the vaccine. The only other thing is somebody who has a child who gets COVID and dies, or a spouse who gets COVID and dies. And we're starting to see what I would describe as the next phase of the pandemic, and that is this massive remorse that you will read about in the months to come from people who've lost children, spouses, family members, and friends because they were vocally opposed to getting the vaccine, and they are changing their tune. That's the only other thing that'll make a difference.
Jillian, let me ask you this on Nick's point where he talked about freedom. And are we at a stage in our society where that's what this all is? It's how people are thinking about freedom, and I think it's being bastardized by so many people. This whole word freedom, I'm not sure if people actually understand what it means sometimes. And I know that there's going to be some people saying, maybe we have too many freedoms. Oh my God, he said that out loud, but sometimes when we think about it, doesn't it seem like people are just using freedom, that it becomes a cliche phrase every now and then to throw at somebody just to go ahead and make a point and make it sure that it's your way or the highway?
I just know that I personally feel like it's a choice. And obviously I made a choice. And if you don't want to make that choice, that's on you. And I'm not, I'm not a super political person, so I don't get in splitting hairs on this.
Well, actually, I got to tell you, that might make you the smartest person anywhere. Seriously, because this splitting hairs on the politics right now, it's like this. Ellis, you and I've had these kind of conversations, and you have them all the time. To me, it's just always splitting hairs on freedom sometimes, but at other times we have this Grand Canyon-esque divide between what is real freedom and what is, in my mind, bullshit freedom that is used for nothing more than a cliche.
Yeah, here's the good news. This is actually an issue that matters, right? I mean, so much of the stuff we argue about, certainly in cable news, Ed, as you know, is stuff that really doesn't have that much to do with people's lives.
Yep.
It's just red versus blue and yell at each other, and which of the angry, skinny, blonde women am I arguing with today? But
no offense, Julie. No offense.
Matters. I mean,
do I look like a Karen? Come on.
This is life and death. I mean, this is a really good question. Yeah. And I mean, listen, Julie makes a point. I think it reflects, how a lot of people feel, which is like, just leave me alone and let me decide. I would say that there's some, limit to that once you start risking other people.
Yeah, but can you leave somebody alone if what they're doing is putting somebody at risk?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, if, for instance, you decide that you don't want to vaccinate your kids for the childhood vaccinations that are required for you to go to public school, isn't it a responsible thing for you to decide not to put those kids in public school? Maybe the responsible thing is to homeschool those children. Maybe if you decide you're not going to wear a mask and you're not going to get a vaccine, the best thing you can do is isolate yourself from other people who you might infect, who may be vulnerable because they're too young to get the vaccine. They may be immunocompromised, or they may be seniors who are at a high risk category. So I think freedom comes not just as a given; it comes with responsibility. I'm not criticizing you, Julie. I'm really not. I'm just suggesting that what I often hear is the argument that my body, my choice, my freedom, my ability to make the decision about, I don't want my government telling me what I need to do for my health. Don't tell me to eat broccoli, which is the ridiculous example that I've heard. Don't tell me I need to join a health club. Well, okay, I'm fine giving you, we should in this country grant extraordinary freedoms, and the government should stay out of people's lives unless it's necessary.
But we can't stay out of people's lives if people are stupidly ignorant.
Well, I'm with you on that. But I think the other point is, people need to take responsibility. If you're gonna exercise your freedom to own a gun, you better take the responsibility to make sure that you learn how to use it, learn how to keep your family and everybody around you safe. If you're gonna have the freedom to drive a car, learn how to do it so you're not on the road and putting people in danger. I see them as very similar, only coronavirus and the pandemic is an extreme example of that, and maybe the best we've ever had in my lifetime to balance the freedoms and the responsibilities.
Are we not, though, at a stage in our societal evolution where you use the word responsibility, where that is the least effective word in any conversation? Because it doesn't make a difference if it's political, if it's business, if it's social. We are now awash in a society that does not want to and does not think about taking responsibility for their actions. And it's gotten worse.
I have to argue with you on that because yes, there is a faction, there is a quadrant, there's a significant minority. Yes, but look, nearly half of Americans have done the right thing and gotten vaccinated. 3/4 of Democrats say they're going to if they haven't already. There is another party where people are more reticent, that tend to be more freedom oriented.
The Republicans, say it out loud.
I'm looking at the vast numbers of people who are doing the right thing without the government telling them. I am so encouraged when I go to some place and I see people wearing masks. For me, it's a little bit of an IQ test. I hate to sound like an elitist, and maybe I am.
Okay, you are. Yeah, you are. It's okay.
I own it. I am. But when I see somebody wearing a mask, I make some assumptions about those folks and the character that they have. When I hear somebody, as I did a couple nights ago at an outdoor restaurant, upbraid a person who was sitting at a table for wearing a mask, saying, "Don't wear that mask in my presence," I make judgments about that person's character too. I try not to be judgmental, but I think I'm right to make that kind of judgment. And so for me, you know me, I'm an eternal optimist. Ed, you would call me a Pollyanna, naive, and maybe I am. But
you are a little Pollyanna, but that's what makes you
I'm wonderful. A little bit. I genuinely believe in the goodness of most people. I think most Americans will do the right thing. Not all the time, maybe, but most of the time when it comes to from themselves, their family, and their fellow human beings. I still believe that.
Okay, hang on a sec here. Julie, I'm going to bring you back into this. Do you believe, and take politics out of this for a moment, what Nick just said. Do you believe that most people, by and large, will do the right thing?
But the right thing is so subjective, wouldn't you say? You know,
Yes.
I mean, it depends on who you're asking what the right thing. I'm just playing devil's advocate here.
Please go right ahead.
So, for instance, I know someone that bought a fake vaccine card. It's like, how do you do that? Is that like when you were a kid and you tried to get an underage ID, or you go to, I don't understand where they're getting these from. But she had a lot of concerns about being immunocompromised, but yet not being able to go do things. Now, does she wear a mask? Does she wear a shield? Does she do all the things? Yes. But is she concerned about being able to travel? So, I mean, what I'm saying, it's not my business to tell anyone else what to do with themselves.
No, sure, I get that. But the point here then would be, do you think that most people, there's always that terrible nature of using words like most people, but do you think most people in America, despite all the nonsense, all the bullshit, all the hate, everything that's gone back and forth here in the last couple of years, do you still think that people will do the right thing? Will do the good thing?
You know what? I've been online dating for so many years. I've lost hope on there being smart people or good people. Okay.
Well, that's the first. You got to get off the damn
And
online
then,
dating. I mean, it's all fake to begin with. You know that.
well, where am I going to get my material? And then
That's
you know,
true.
these guys have the badges that say vaccinated. And excuse me, but really, is that the reason you're not getting laid? I doubt it.
And there we have it, ladies and gentlemen. That's why you need to stay off the online dating as much as you can. Although, as Jilly said, it's great. I mean, if you're going to do it for material more than anything else, because that's real.
And free trips. Free trips are good too.
Okay. Ellis, I'm going to bring you in now because let's go ahead and break it down to you folks, because I always like to give the guests a chance to anything and everything. That's why it's called the free-for-all, whatever is on your mind and whatever is there that is, as I like to say, I use the old phrase, what's stuck in the craw. So, and I think Northeasterners would probably understand that phraseology more than anybody else. Mr. Hennigan, what is stuck in your craw today? Oh, we lost your audio. We lost your audio. We can't hear you. You got to turn your audio back on. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, this is what happens when you do live television. And that's where that all of a sudden goes to the guy who's there as the anchor at the desk, because something's gone wrong in the back. Let's see if he can dance long enough to make sure that everything's fair. Yeah, let's see, and that's why I should have brought a cocktail. No, you're still, whatever you're doing, you got your audio turned off. All right, Ellis, I'm going to go ahead. You go ahead and bring us back. Let's see you there. Ellis, hello. Okay, I'm going to drop you. You come on back in, okay? Go ahead and set it. I'm going to drop you. Come on back in. Mr. Tate, I'm going to go to you, sir. Let's start with you. What's sitting in your craw these days, my friend?
You want to guess? I bet you know. It is all this business about Simone Biles being a quitter and being a weenie and being weak and quitting because of nerves, when what it's really about is the woman making a very extremely courageous decision that her health, mental and physical health, is her biggest priority. So I'm watching Michael Phelps, who's become kind of the poster boy for mental health and Olympic athletes, famously, publicly acknowledging his own struggles with depression and suicide. I was watching him on NBC the day that Simone withdrew, and he was giving her credit. And it was, for me, I posted on Facebook my observation, which was that it was the most inspiring thing that I've seen come out of the Tokyo Olympics. And I think that what we saw with Simone withdrawing is we saw this woman move from being an elite, world-renowned athlete to becoming a true international superstar champion. For all of those people in the world, 1 in 4 people in the world who struggle with depression and other mental health issues. And I salute her. So I posted on Facebook, and wouldn't you know, the ravers and the haters came out and
you
said...
got hammered, didn't you?
What? I got hammered. Quitters never
I did
win.
Too. I put up the same thing. I put up the same thing, and I quite frankly could not believe it, where people were going, she's a coward, she's gutless, she's a quitter. And I went through the ceiling. Because, as I said, most of the people who were calling Simone Biles a quitter couldn't last 60 seconds on the pickleball court. And none of them have ever been involved in any sort of an actual event, if you will, an actual sporting event, where they would absolutely know anything about what it is like to be competitive. I'll bring this up to here, because when it comes to being competitive, Jilly knows what it's like, because when you're there as a performer, you're competitive. You're out there. You gotta be on your game every single second. It's just like being an athlete more than anything else. And yeah, every now and then, guess what? You have a bad moment, you have a bad time, things happen, you screw up, you come back, you do it again. But hey, Jilly, I think this whole attack about Simone Biles is again indicative of this country. It's like an F you if you haven't made me feel good about the fact that I rooted for you and you're supposed to be the best of all time, and you decided to walk away. Who cares? I mean, she did the right thing, because there's a thing in gymnastics called the twisties that most people don't think about. And if you've ever covered gymnastics or know about gymnastics itself, when you are part of the event and you're in the air, if you all of a sudden don't know where you are, you're twisted, your sight line is twisted, and it becomes mental. If you don't know where to land, you could kill yourself. I mean, it's very possible. Yeah. I mean, so Jilly, I think what we're looking at here is people are just looking for a reason to hate somebody, and sometimes I wonder if there's a lot of racism involved here too. If she was a white athlete, if people would let her fly.
You know, I think she did the right thing because look what happens when you let it go too far. You get Tanya Harding. So she saved, you know, another gymnast from, you know, she might have gone off and, you know, hit someone in the knee with a bag. I don't know. But no, on a serious note, it's mental health is above and beyond the most important thing we can take care of. A lot of comedians struggle with it. You know, I've struggled with it personally, and no one should ever be shamed for saying, I just can't, and being brave enough to admit that's why.
Well, isn't that sort of endemic though of what this society is about? Because for people who don't agree with how someone is conducting their life, it's a shaming issue in this country where people just, and again, I call it it's the textual cowards. You can hide behind Facebook, you can hide behind Twitter, you can change your voice on a YouTube channel or a Vimeo channel, and all of a sudden you're the bravest son of a bitch in the world because you don't have anybody to, they don't really know who I am, because it's that bravery of hate and the cowardice of hate, if you will. I mean, look, you know as well as I do when it comes to social media, I go out and have a bad show, somebody hammers you in a second. You go out and have a bad show, somebody's all over you just because they can.
I was in a music video and I didn't even know what World Star was. Those comments were very humbling.
And World Star, I think, isn't that one of those I think that's just a site or something that picks up videos and uses them as comedy? I mean, or dark comedy?
No, they're more like hip hop video. Maybe I'm saying it wrong. Yeah. And they tore me apart. And I was just supposed to be the older woman love interest and, you know, a cougar in this video. But it's like, who brought the grandma on, you know, and such. So
it's so much easier to be a critic than it is to actually do the work or praise. I think that's the truth. I also think that in the last 4 or 5 years, I'm not blaming anyone in particular, but I think that kind of the ugly underbelly of America has been revealed, where once people might be ashamed to reveal their lack of compassion, they're now proudly wearing that shit on their sleeve.
There you
That's
go.
why they can go after Simone Biles. So, you know, my question is, well, where's the compassion? You know, where have we lost something as a country? Am I being overly dramatic?
Well, but wait a minute. Hang on. When you say we've lost our compassion, it's not like, look, losing compassion doesn't happen overnight. It's not like all of a sudden somebody turned a switch, although we can say that the switch was turned when somebody walked down a set of stairs in New York City one day. But look, this lack of compassion, Ellis, come to you on this. This lack of compassion isn't just all of a sudden momentary.
No,
this has been ingrained in us for decades now. It's just we've had the right jerks to come up here and make it mainstream.
Listen, you know, I grew up in Louisiana in the 1960s and 70s. Believe me, lack of compassion is not something that was just been invented lately. Here's what's different, though. I mean, I think you're right about the social media piece of it. You know, there is an aspect of it that the social media allows people to be anonymous and to be hide behind things. But I'll tell you, the tribal stuff is just as much a piece. I mean, people just identify so strongly with whatever their political team is that they turn over the thinking to other people and they aren't taking responsibility. And I think that applies to the COVID stuff. It applies to the Olympic stuff. And listen, I love people talking about their mental health. That's a big step forward.
Well, see, that's the next thing that I think we need to discuss too, because what I read is, in all these people who are hammering away at Simone Biles and Naomi Osaka and others, either they don't understand or they don't want to understand the fact that, quite frankly, I think this country is awash in mental health debilitation right now more than anything else. I think that you've probably got, if you were able to have a light on somebody's head if they're having mental health issues, and it's not that there's a big difference between suffering from mental health and having mental health issues. I mean, I think, Nick, you might even be, there's a little break in there, because you can be ill from a mental health condition, but then you can have mental health issues which are bothering you, which are depression and anger and all these other things. I mean, look, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a psychologist, I just play one on TV. But it would seem to me as if we're living in a society right now that is just buried in mental health issues. Everybody's got them. It's just a matter of the level that you have them at, and how you can deal with them.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's right, and it's. I mean,
Yeah,
the best
you're
thing
not
we
too
can do
sure.
is, no, I mean, the best thing we can do is talk about it. You know, I mean, what was so bad before is that you had to hide it. Yes, of course, we all have that stuff, and it's better if we can kind of be, you know, be open about it. I guess maybe it started with Woody Allen saying, "I go to a shrink." But now, you know, everybody pretty much is willing to talk about that. I don't think people's careers are hurt if they say I suffer from depression. Do you? That's a good thing.
Well, see, I think they are. I still do,
Really?
because yes, I believe if a celebrity comes out, or a minor celebrity comes out and says they are suffering from depression, you will have some people who will say, "Well, good for you. I'm glad you brought it out into the open." But then there are others who will come to the coward, quitter. What's wrong with you? What's your problem? Gee, you're so rich. You've got all this money in the world. How can you be mentally depressed? You got a brand new car. You've got a big family. I think that's what happens. It becomes an attack factor, which I think is part of a jealousy factor in so many ways.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think you're back though to stupid people. I mean, there are people who feel like that, but I mean, we can't. You don't want to fold your life or judge yourself around that, do you?
No, but what you've just brought out is you've used the word, which is my sainted granny, God love her, she'd been gone a long time, but she used to tell me that, Edward, it is impolite to call somebody stupid.
Yeah.
And I now believe that if she were alive today, she would take a walk in the streets in her beloved Manhattan, and she would walk back into her apartment in Greenwich Village and say, "Holy shit, there's a lot of stupid people out there."
Yeah.
I think we see that. I mean, Jilly, you've traveled before. You've been in so many different places, and you work the road as your part as a stand-up comic.
From comedy,
yeah, you got to come across stupid people like they're stuck to the bottom of your shoe.
I just think we're in a different time. You know, I'm not going to say how old I am, but obviously I grew up with
You're
the
29.
phone.
You're 29.
Yeah,
we know that.
Forever. You know, but I'm thankful I didn't grow up with all of these. You know, I just don't think people know how to communicate anymore, and it's just the way they were raised. You know, with their face in their phone, and not that I'm guilty of that sometimes myself, but I also know what it was like before all of that, before having cell phones, before having this immediate connection to people. But there's something missing, I think. And so I wouldn't, you know, I'm always such a nice, I'm from Minnesota. I'm very nice. I don't want to call people stupid. I just want to say that they're just missing a part of socialization, to be quite honest.
I'm sorry, but I tend to think you're being nice. I really do.
A little bit.
I really think that you're just trying to be nice. And I think, for instance, when we were at a time in this society when the media refused to use, and the legitimate press and the clickbait media were refusing to use the word liar. They wouldn't say that somebody lied. It was an inconvenient fact, or they were just off the truth a little bit. That's bullshit. I mean, we were being lied to on a daily, minute-by-minute basis, and I had the unfortunate part of working with an organization at one time, which I was thrilled to be separated from, which was lying on a daily basis, and they still do, to the point where they're caught in lawsuits and having to come out and bring the lawyers in for being caught in it. But we've got networks everywhere, and we've got media outlets, and we've got people that call it a liar. So I guess I must just be at a part where I'm sick and tired of it. It's a lie, and not only that, you're stupid. I can't think of any other way to do it. I mean, Ellis, How can you not just call somebody out for a change? Because we
Yeah,
look at some of
I
the
hear
stuff
you.
that's out there. And then it comes into the political side of things. Wait a minute, stop. Yes, he did help to make the January 6th riot happen, and it wasn't tourists hanging around Washington D.C. and they weren't just there to go ahead and get a cap and go home. If you think that, you're stupid and you're a liar at the same time, and that's the biggest issue. Call it out.
Yeah, I mean, and I grew up in media in the same way you did, with AP style, and you wouldn't really call somebody a liar. You learn to make them look like a liar,
You
and to
swam
make it
around the
clear
word. You did.
that you think they're a liar. But here's but it's not as clean as you're making it out to be. I don't
Okay.
think. Because what happens is that you just turn off a huge part of the audience. So what it is now is that people just find media that confirms all of the, let's just say it, all the stupid, ignorant stuff they already agree with, and nobody's mind has ever changed about anything. In fact, it's for the first time in human history possible to go through the world and consume media 24 hours a day where you never have the slightest hint that anybody doesn't agree with you. And that does make us stupider. I love arguing about this stuff. I mean, I grew up at a big loud dinner table in New Orleans. We argued about everything, and I made a career of the talking head stuff and talk radio and all that, where debating and discussing and having different perspectives. And I mean, to me, that's a lot of fun. But I think we're running out of that. I think all it is people want to hang around with people who agree with them. And when I first went on television, what I learned was the two worst words in the world in a pundit segment on a cable news show were "good point." Once you said that, the segment was over. It only worked if you were going back and forth. But I think today all we say is "good point" to each other on television.
Well, but it's a nodding of the head. It's I can see where you're coming
Yeah,
from, and
yeah,
certainly that's how some people feel. You and I both know that that's what the legitimate press and also the clickbait media does, where it's to do nothing more than keep the conversation going because you got the producer in the ear going, "Go ahead, keep going, keep going. We got another 3 minutes before we hit a
yeah.
break," and then it all comes down to we want to keep our audience engaged. I mean, look, that's part of the problem here. We have very few people who will ask hard questions in the press and stick with them, which is why I
Yeah.
keep going back to 60 Minutes and a few other places.
Yeah.
Everything else, especially local news, is an absolute whitewash.
Yeah, but let me
Nonsense.
can I make one last point, and then
You
I'll
can
shut
make
up
all the
about
points
this.
you
I know
want, brother.
this is one that gets under my skin a little bit. Like in all my early years as a TV talking head, right? It was a cliche, right? There would be a host, and then there would be a liberal guest, and there'd be a conservative guest, right? And the whole segment was like almost to the point of ridiculousness. I mean, sometimes we would argue about things that no sane person could have different opinions about, but they thought this segment only worked if there was that conflict. They wanted that tension. Now they're really truthfully, there's not that much of that, hardball model that
No,
left wing
there is no
right.
counterpoint
And
like
so
there
and
used to
so
be.
Fox, right? So Fox, where I worked for a bunch of years as one of the liberal voices, has very few people like me on the air anymore. And MSNBC is even worse in the opposite direction. I mean, there are virtually
Absolutely.
no conservative voices on MSNBC. And to me, on both sides, I think that's a loss. I like the back
Well,
and forth.
okay,
You
but
might
here's what
actually
the
learn
programmers
something.
will say, Ellis, because I've been in this argument before. They will say that if everybody does exactly the same thing, where CNBC, MSNBC, Fox, CNN, OANN, all of these people still do, when they do the left, right, you're going to be getting the same thing, and you're not going to set us apart, and we're not going to get big ratings, and we can't sell a lot of advertising. But if you continue to just go down that lane and go ahead, pull in the right wing nut job, pull in the left wing nut
Yeah.
job, then we're going to become the magnet for them, and that's going to give us a fatter
Yeah,
audience.
I get
That's
I
what's
get the
happened.
business. I get the business reason for it, and there is also, and there's a psychological piece to it. There is something pleasing, and let's just admit this. There's something pleasing about hearing someone who is more articulate than you are saying something you agree with, right? So most people are not natural commentators, right? And so you see some good-looking person on TV who is expressing your worst, most narrow-minded prejudices, but saying them well. That's very pleasing. That makes me think, hey, maybe I'm right. Maybe I am smart. Listen to that guy on TV, that woman on TV. Anyway, that's enough of my sermon, but that is what I think.
No, but I mean, your sermon's well put, because it's part and parcel of being fed the nonsense that we get fed. Because if you go to MSNBC, you're going to get all left-wing nonsense. Everybody in the right wing is a devil. Everybody wants to go ahead and crush the planet. Everybody there is a liar. You then go to Fox. Everybody on the left is a band of wusses, and they don't have any guts to get anything done, and they hate America. It's all the point. Is all it is. I mean, look, Jilly, from your perspective as a stand-up comic, I watch stand-up comedians. For the life of me, I don't know how you do it, because you're out there in front of an audience and you don't know, well, you know the city you're in, but you don't know if you got a right-wing crowd, a left-wing crowd, and the first thing you say that's going to piss somebody off, holy hell, it'll come down on you like a ton of bricks.
I will say, I didn't necessarily know how political this show was going to be. I'm not a super political person. And as a comic, I certainly don't go there. I have plenty of other things to talk about, and I don't need to ostracise half the crowd. So I'm for entertainment purposes.
Well, no, but that's my point.
I'm an actress. No one wants to hear my political views. So
which I think is right when you go there, but do you not get concerned at all about where your audience may be on a base and how they may react to you?
But that has nothing. I'm not going to go there with anything political. That's not my humor. And to be honest, there are people, that's their brand, that's their style. It's not mine.
And you've made that decision, because, and I think you've made the right decision, because when you do that,
I made that decision. It's just inherently in me. It's not that I don't care. I just feel that my job, how many times have you heard that an entertainer should just sit down, and no one wants to hear all their political views? Well, I'm an entertainer.
I agree, but my only point is, from a lot of the comics that I talk to, some of them, and even they who don't do a lot of political, they say sometimes you got to walk on eggshells, because you don't know who's right, who's left, and how they're going to take something you say, because your act doesn't include anything political. I mean, the bits I've seen and the bits I know are completely unpolitical, but you never know if you're going to get somebody.
The closest thing I came is I told a Black Lives Matters joke, and the person didn't even listen all the way through to hear that it actually didn't have to do with anything political. And I got a little bit of a hater, but it was because I used the topic.
But there's the point, and that's it. You can't, in your line of work and with others, the only way that we have to get past all this is you can't have a conversation. You have to avoid it. You got to walk away from it completely. Don't even talk about it. Don't even think about talking about it, because you just made the great point. You make one little inference and somebody is going to slam you because they can. And that's not fair. You made one inference out of a joke, and everybody hammers away at you. So let me then stay with you, because I want to take this down to what, first of all, what you do, and how difficult it is these days. Are people laughing anymore is the great bit. As we start to come out of COVID, are they laughing? What are they laughing at? And I'll open that up to you then. What is sitting in your craw these days? What is it that you want to talk about?
Honestly, I'm just happy to be out there again doing live shows, and people are out and they're wanting to laugh. They are wanting to be out there and laughing. So I've been all over between California and here and New York, and people just need laughter. We've been through quite a horrible time, and not to say it's over, but it's not. I don't know. I don't know that I have anything in my craw right now. I don't want. I'm telling you, I turned off the news because I had a super political ex-husband, and then COVID hit and this election, and so I decided to listen again. You had to know what's going on in the world. And once election was over, I swear to you, I just can't have it in my life right now. So I don't have a lot to share.
Well, there's a point in there as well, to everybody here. How do we just have normal conversations anymore without getting involved in politics? I mean, Jilly's right. Some people just want to walk away from this. And on social media, I will be the one to say that I have reveled in starting fights. You know, I'm the one that's got the fork. You know, I like to poke them. Nick will tell you that's exactly true. That's what I've always done. I like that. But how can you do that anymore when
Pretty much.
you can't have any sort of a conversation where it seems everybody is on the line of attack? That's difficult to exist these days and just having conversations with people, right? Nick, I'll let you go. Okay,
Well,
Nick,
I would say that
There you
one
go.
of the things that we've absolutely lost is we do seem to have lost collectively a little bit of a sense of humor. Everybody takes things seriously, and maybe it's because we're dealing with serious issues like what kind of government do we want? What kind of political leaders do we want? What kind of response should we make to a life-threatening pandemic? But we can't lose sight of our basic humanity. And an important point of this, I think, to Jilly's point, is uh, we have to maintain a sense of humor. And, you know, I'm putting it on you, Jilly. You need to keep us sane. We need it. We need to talk about this stuff. We need to hear about it, you know, and not take everything so damn seriously that I always try to think in terms of what's the worst that could happen. The worst that could happen is we become a humorless, compassionless society just when we're entering a period that should be the finest moment for American history. We should be at the top of our game. We should be not just saying, how do we settle, but how can we excel? How can we get better? I think we have to do that with compassion, but I think we can't lose sight of our humanity. And to me, that means humor. And I apologize for losing thread there with the fun with technology in my house. I have workers at my house today. I told them, come later because I'm busy. Guess what? They showed up early. They walked in.
No worries, Nick. I mean, that's why we have the control room here. I was just throwing you out there, man. You were gone. Yeah, it's all right. And I knew you came back, but that's fine. Jilly, what's funny these days? What's working for you? I mean, when you talk about what makes people laugh?
What's always worked?
Always worked.
I'm gonna go back to the dating.
But what works for you when you're on stage? What makes people laugh these days?
Again, the dating. It's gotten even weirder in times of COVID. So there's just plenty of awkwardness there to talk about.
But you know, you don't have a problem getting dates, though, I would imagine. I mean, the cougar of comedy should have no problem whatsoever.
The ones that are maybe, you know, I excuse me.
Please don't get violent. It's okay. It's not that kind of thing.
I know I'm so mentally stable. That's kind of a problem. Gainfully employed. That's also a problem. Not married. That's a problem too. Not living with mom. That's a problem. So I you know what? And it's not any better for any of my friends. So that's what's out there.
Get yourself out there, girl. Don't worry about it. It's all in here. Everything's fine. All right, I'm going to go ahead and throw a couple things at you guys that I want to go ahead and get what I usually call the 3 for free, or the free for 3, which is just a few things that I want to go ahead that are sitting out there these days that everybody gets a chance to opine upon. It's again the free for all here. I'm going to bring up the first. I don't know why. I don't know why I'm doing this. I'm going to hurt myself on all this, but I think it's fair. I want to go back to what Nick talked about earlier. Nick brought into the conversation here the entire hate that seems to be being spewed at Simone Biles these days. I've been covering sports for over almost 40 years, my entire adult life. And I know what it's like to be an athlete, and I know what it's like to have that pressure that's on them. And she is the greatest of all time, without any question whatsoever. She's phenomenal to watch. But we have, again, that part of the partisan clickbait media who is going after her because she decided to step away, and they are extrapolating this into ways that is frightening. This is Will Cain, who is a failed sports talker, who is on Fox News, who is on another show, another set of podcasts, and this is him talking about Simone Biles. And listen to where the frightening thing is. Listen to where he goes. Because if you try to follow this logically, you're going to hurt yourself. You're going to have a snap whiplash, and we may never be able to recover from it.
The bottom line is we are celebrating quitting. And that's where we have gotten as a culture and as a nation. Now, first of all, I do think Simone Biles deserves her own individual criticism. But without me knowing all the details of whatever it is going on with her, my focus and my attention, Clay, is way more on the reaction. There's a headline, there's a cover today, I believe, of the New Yorker praising her bravery for quitting. And look, you tweeted it, Clay. I feel the exact same way. I put my two sons, 13 and 10, into sports to learn the lessons that we are now saying the opposite is praiseworthy of. Meaning, I put my boys into sports to fail, to be resilient, to never quit. They're not going to be professional athletes. I know that very well. I put them in to learn life lessons. And look, this is reflected across all of our culture. Words are violence. Protests and riots are mostly peaceful. Boys are girls. Quitters have strength. Everywhere you look, it's not just the language that's been turned on its head, but it's the values that have been turned on their head. And somehow if you tell that truth, maybe it's a harsh truth, you're the villain. Clay, you're the villain. I'm the villain if I believe that, if I say that. And I don't understand that. I don't understand this deep cultural rot. To me, to be real to your audience listening right now, that deep cultural rot is a greater threat to our nation than whoever gets elected president. This is what sets America apart, this resilience, this strength, this ability to honestly push west, run the risk of getting scalped, and go reach the Pacific Ocean and build civilizations. And if we're going to sit here and vilify every aspect that made this country great, that's the cultural rot that takes us down.
Okay, I got it. Unreal. You go west and take the risk of getting scalped. Okay, first of all, so we're bringing up old tropes about Native Americans, which was actually made famous in the movies more than anything else. And let me see what else I got in here. First of all, I should point out that Clay Travis and Buck Sexton, the guys who are the hosts of this podcast, they too are failed sports guys who've now gone completely right. And they used to be Rush Limbaugh fill-ins. So that's all part of this whole mix. So again, it's part of this, let's talk to the same audience over and over again. Boys or girls, okay, completely homophobic in all of this, throwing out that generalization. And I love the fact that at the beginning of this, he says, Simone Biles is due criticism, but not knowing the details. That was the best part. He said it right there. I'm going to slam away at her, but I don't know the details of what's behind it. No, we don't know. We have no idea what happened to her. But this is part and parcel of the idiocy, the nonsense, the bullshit, the people out there who are driving this country, people like that who just throw the lies and the crap. And Ellis, I know we talked about this, but this is flaming right down the street of making sure that the stupid people have something to work on.
Yeah, no, it's dumb. I mean, the question in the end is, what does the athlete owe us, right? And I mean, I think if they go out and perform, they owe us their best. But in this case, she decided not to. This isn't my day. I'm going to come back later. I'm not up for it today. And I mean, my God, how could you? It just seems kind of cruel to deny her the human right to make that decision. Some of those guys
not only that,
back
but she made a decision on the team side. People forget this is a team side. She made the decision that if she were to continue to compete, that she was going to drag the team down. Guess what? Team still won silver because they come out. And not only that, guess what? She decides to move on, and a new star emerges. On the U.S., Sonny Lee comes out and wins the all-around. So she allowed a teammate to come in here and become an absolute star. Jilly, that's got to be something that makes you feel good. That there's people out there who want to help. Look, I'm having a crappy day. It's not going to work. So at least let me see if I can make somebody else look good and feel good about it and perform well. That's what this country ought to be, yes?
Yeah, I agree. I just, sorry, I'm still wrapped up in that guy's whole diatribe there. I just want to know how his sons turn out, because I think there's going to be some problems there.
Well, there's another thing, too, where he says, I put my sons in sports to fail. What the hell's wrong with you? You put your sons and your daughters, by the way, in sports to learn how to compete. And learn how to compete, learn how to be better. You don't put them in there how to fail. We all fail. I played sports, and yeah, I failed, and it made me better. But I also succeeded, and it made me better. I mean, Nick, this guy's just full of so much diatribe nonsense that's in there. But with the time we've been in the media, Ellis can probably say this too, but Nick, when we were sitting and doing stuff together, we knew that all we were doing was feeding the machine. And that's all that guy's doing. He's feeding the machine with nonsense, as many of the hosts that we worked with, who all they did and still do on cable television these days, who just feed this machine with bullshit. And it makes people feel good.
You know what, Ed, the thing for me that is most troubling is that there are tens of millions of people who will hear that and watch that and nod and say, yep. And those are the people who Kellyanne Conway, bless her heart, as they would say in the South, got this when she said early on that, don't you see, people are just seeing and viewing and interpreting alternate facts. So what we have in this country, it really is at least two Americas, and one side of the country believes in the reality that he's just spewed. And, you know, I'm grateful there's another side, and I hope it's a more populist side of this country that recognizes this for what it is. But it does bother me more than anything else. It's not him, it's not the politicians who will spew the nonsense, the Marjorie Taylor Greens of the world, the Matt Gaetz, mention their names, but it's the folks who will turn up to their rallies and nod and smile and thumbs up and, yeah, you're right, guys. That's the thing that's troubling to me. And I hate to introduce a new idea here.
A logical idea?
But it's logical. I actually, in some ways, hope that individual one remains in the public eye. And the reason is because I believe that at his rallies, we allow law enforcement to see these people very visibly, keep a close eye on them, and make sure that we don't let them crawl back under a rock where they can really be dangerous. So in some ways, some of this stuff is good for the evolution of the country, and that we're finding out that there is a subset of lawbreakers, haters, racists, homophobes, Islamophobes, anti-Semites. Now I'm making a long list. And I think that as long as...
you barely gotten started.
Right.
You got a lot more to go on that list.
So I kind of hope he stays in the public eye and doesn't go to jail right away anyway, because I think it will allow us to keep an eye on those folks. And it will make people like everyone, like us and everyone listening, to take a side and decide, who do you want to be? What do you want to be a part of in terms of making America, I hate to say it, greater than it is?
Or just making America great, period. So let's leave it there. But you're right, but it's entertainment value. To that point, and how we started this show, we started discussing about, my rant at the beginning of the show was about how people needed to be vaccinated, and if you don't get vaccinated, you don't get to work. Period, end of story, walk away. But here's another issue, and I want to throw this out to everybody and get your opinion on this. Should somebody not be allowed to work, and that's what this is all about, work at the end of the day, because of their political beliefs? If somebody is out there and throws out the possibility or the likelihood or the fact that they are in favor of past political beliefs, whether it's left or right, whatever, should somebody then lose their job? In essence, that's sort of what's happened in the National Hockey League with the Carolina Hurricanes right now.
There's an influx of free agents coming to Carolina, along with the team re-signing one of their most lovable players, Jordan Martinook. But one signing has drawn the ire of some of the Caniac faithful, former New York Rangers defenseman Tony DeAngelo.
Did we think that there was going to be some people not happy about this? 100%. Did we make sure that we checked all our boxes? 100%.
DeAngelo has been accused of using racist remarks and physical violence against former teammates in the past. And while he isn't on Twitter at the moment, he's accused of liking posts that supported the January 6th insurrection in Washington, enough to make Scott Youngblood ask for a refund on his season tickets.
This goes beyond just like politics. It's what's right and wrong in my opinion. And I believe that, I just want the team to represent, good values.
Youngblood's ticket rep told him that they're not giving refunds at the moment, but he would get a call from someone in management in the coming weeks. Meanwhile, DeAngelo himself is looking to rehab his reputation in Raleigh.
I've said some stuff and done some stuff that stemmed from being on the ice that I regret. And I'm not going to sit here and say I haven't done it but I regret it. I got to move on.
Waddell says the team did thorough research on DeAngelo and his character and says that owner Tom Dundon, coach Rod Brindamore, and some of the players all approved of this signing.
Nothing they say really is going to get me to support the team while they have Tony DeAngelo on contract.
Stick with us, give me a shot, and I'm going to make the best for you guys.
Hey, Ellis, doesn't everybody deserve a second chance?
Yeah, I hate to say it, but I kind of sympathize with the guy. I mean, I don't think I agree with him very much, but we don't hire people on professional sports teams because who's the best, most moral human being. I mean, and most fans, I think, they'd be happy to have a monster if the monster could win. Let's just acknowledge what it is.
I tend to think it's true because we've seen that. Every single sport. Look, I've been around sports for a long time. I know coaches, players who have been allowed to continue to work when they have been involved in sexual assault, physical assaults, drunken. Look, I'm going to tell you, there was the one coach I know, a very famous coach from a very famous program, who every single night that he drove home from the facility to his home, which was maybe 2 miles away, every single night, the cops were there to watch him because he was plastered by the time he left the office. He was drunk going to, and he never got arrested. I mean, but people loved him because he won a national championship.
Let me try to connect this to the Olympic discussion from earlier.
Sure.
I think we sometimes raise up athletes. The hero worship of athletes in this country is extraordinary.
Oh, you're right there. Yes.
They're hailed as gods. You know what? These people are people. In some ways, they're regular people. They're not superhuman. As we just heard, they're not super thinkers. So on the one hand, maybe we expect too much of these folks. On the other hand, actions have consequences. You can't just say certain things and expect that your teammates, your organization, the company you work for, your bosses, the people who work for you are all going to be okay with it. I mean, if we put it in a completely different cast, and what he said, or let's take it out of this particular case, if what we heard was, and we've heard it from other athletes, racist, misogynistic, sexist, homophobic things, are those things that a ball club or a putt club or any kind of sporting club should turn a blind eye to? I don't know. It's pretty complicated.
It's very complicated, Jilly. It's something where you look at it and you know that there are athletes out there, there are entertainers, there are people out there who are as sexist as the day is long, who are actually, they make jokes about it, of course, but it's out there. And I certainly don't think in the entertainment world that any club owner, if a comedian comes out and makes sexist jokes, racist jokes, they're going to hire him as long as they make you laugh, because that's what the public wants. If the public will come in and pay for it, then they're going to let it go. Yes?
I think we've seen this in sports over and over again, to Ellis's point. And, he's young. He sort of said, hey, I'm sorry. And I think for most people, that's fine. Because if they love him as a player, they love him as a player. And, look, you can go down a list. Ray Lewis, and people still love him.
Not only do they love him, they worship him to this point. Still, in Baltimore, if you were to go and talk about Ray Lewis, they would say he was the greatest ball player of all time in a Ravens uniform. But there was this thing in Atlanta with somebody who got murdered. Oh, no. Okay, come on. It's okay. Ray was never really proven, and they never found the coat, and they didn't really find any evidence. And Ray was shuffled out, and he was, oh God. Sienna, that's a show that we could do right there. I could wallow away on that for hours. But I think we're all in agreement here that, yeah, what he said, what Tony D'Angelo has said, can be repulsive to some people. And if you don't like it, then get your money back. But I think that the market is going to bear it. If the fans don't see him and if the team doesn't want him, they'll get rid of him. But I think at the end of the day, as reprehensible as it is to some people, you can believe in MAGA all you want. As long as you score the hat trick and you bring me a Stanley Cup, I'm going to forget everything that happens. And I've seen that happen far too often. Last shot from me. Get everybody in on this. And then we'll close it out with a last word from everybody. I'm going to go back to the Olympics. And again, here's part of this whole issue about why some people feel that they've just got to take a simple sporting effort and then mock it and hate it and make fun of it. This gentleman's name is Grant Stinchfield. He's in Texas. He's done talk shows there. Stop laughing, Mr. Tate, because I can see you already starting to smile. And We've probably seen him. When the men's basketball team lost their first game to France in the Olympics, and I came out and talked about it on social media, and I said it just goes to show that teamwork's not the same here in America, that the skill level is not as really good in America as it used to be because we're taking high school kids and making them pros in no time. And then on international basketball, you work the skills, you work the team. It's a big difference, so I wasn't that all shocked about it. Grant Stinchfield decided that it was all about something else.
Well, folks, it's not often that I'm happy a U.S. team loses in the Olympics. It makes me sad to say it. But I found myself rooting against not just Megan Rapinoe and her merry band of America-hating female soccer players. They lost one game, I guess, over the last few days. But I took pleasure in the men's basketball team, USA's first team loss since 2004. Yes, Team USA suffering an embarrassing loss to France, 83-76. The collection of whiny, overpaid social justice warriors are very hard to root for. The team is filled with anthem kneelers, and I find it ironic they are willing to put USA across their chest, but in the not-so-distant past, they would kneel for the anthem. Somebody ought to go up to them and just rip USA off their chest. I don't want them wearing it, personally. Here's what's rich. As the level of social justice nonsense described as activism increases in America, guess what? The success of these woke stars diminishes. Over the past 2 years, men's basketball Team USA has lost 5 of its last 8 games. And this just might be the worst U.S. men's team to take the floor during an Olympic Games.
Okay. I mean, here we go again. They didn't lose because they didn't play well. They lost because they kneel. Is not America all about the freedom to do things? Isn't the freedom there if you want to kneel, if you want to stand? I mean, why does everything have to be political? Julie, you're a perfect example. You've decided to stay away from the political. I mean, this has got to make your head explode.
It does. It's like going to Minnesota and hanging out with my family. But
I'm sorry.
I have to tell them I don't want to talk about it.
And that's got to enrage them. When you don't they then get insulted? How can you not talk about this because it's important? I mean,
and then I walk out of the room and I have a Mick Gold Light because that's pretty good there.
Okay. You go for the cocktail. That's the easiest thing. Ellis?
First of
all, let me just say this. Grant Stinchfield is a deplorable, despicable racist. I've interviewed him before. I know that he's racially motivated. He is doing nothing more than sitting on the side of the far right. He wants to be wealthy. He wants to make more money. He wants his shows to succeed. And he is pushed along at this by the network that he is on that wants you to create as much hate as possible. That's what he's doing. Ellis, I don't even know if he really believes half the stuff, although I think he does. But to put this conglomeration of words together that I'm happy that an American team lost because they kneel for the anthem and they're woke? Oh, come on. This is becoming a level of subterranean bullshit that I don't think we can ever quite dig up. Again.
Yeah, I think you have that about right. It's pandering to the worst of us or the worst of them. It's ignorant. And you know what it is, honestly? It's a very narrow and unappealing view of what America is. I mean, I don't think that's his version of America isn't the nation that most of us would really be that proud to be part of anyway. So yeah, I think we can ignore him, blow him off, and just hope he runs out of gas pretty soon.
Well, that's the problem is you and I both know, being in the media, and you've been in this for a while, this gas never goes away.
I mean, there's an audience for it.
It would seem as if it's always going to be there, and we're not going to be able to get rid of it. But I think that what we try to do as intelligent people is at least say, look, the guy's just full of shit. At the end of the day, just walk away. I know I'm going to get hammered. Somebody will say, how dare you say that? As my granny used to say, you can tell. If their eyes are brown, they're full of shit. If they're blue, they're a quart short. So she was a wonderful woman when she got on a roll. I'll tell you that much. Okay, hard time. We're all out of here. We got a couple of things here. Jilly, I'm going to give you the last word on absolutely anything you'd like to go ahead and talk about, and anything you'd like to mention here at the end for you. You can promote anything. Go for it, lady.
I'm just going to say, whichever way you want to consume comedy, live, TV, online, just it is good for your mental health. So I'm just bringing that full circle that we need some humor and some levity. Even if you want to get super heavy about stuff, you have to take the time out to not be that way also.
Who's your favorite comic? Who did you model yourself after?
Oh, well, he's dead, but I love Carlin. But I don't think I'm modeled after him.
No, but you know something? I'm glad you said that, because every time I don't know why, I come from the area. I was a kid when Carlin was out. I still measure every comic against George Carlin for whatever reason. I think that's brilliant. Just Ellis, off the top of my head, then, favorite comic.
I mean, he's pretty good. You know, it's funny. It's hard. I can't really pick him, but I will say this: I've played in comedy a little bit, and let me tell you, it is the hardest thing. Stand-up comedy is so much harder than anything else I've ever done. I mean, arguing with people, standing up and giving speeches in front of huge crowds. You know, being on live TV under horrible circumstances, and everything was breaking. None of it is as hard as being there for the 11:30 show with 3 drunk people yelling at you and feeling like your material isn't working. My God, you all have my respect. It's really
that
tough.
was my Wednesday.
That's really tough.
What is the old saying?
There's nothing I do that's harder than that.
What is the old saying? Death is easy, comedy is hard.
Yeah, it's really true.
I'm trying to think who thought of that one day. I got to, and minor story here. I love Lewis Black.
Yeah, he's great.
Lewis Black makes me roll over. But I went to a show of his in Miami Beach several years ago, and he was trying new material. And Jilly could probably, be familiar with this. He was trying new material, and it was awful. It was terrible. He was off on a tangent about traveling, and got away from what was his core. And not only did we not laugh, I wrote him a note on Facebook that he responded to. Which, and I made a copy of it, but I said, you weren't funny. And he came back and just ripped into me and said that performers have to try new things. I came back at him, I said, well, don't do it when you're in front of an audience who comes to see Lewis Black. I mean, Jilly, don't you find yourself, you got to stay with what you got to rung what you brung and play with the good stuff?
Well, I just think if you're in front of, a paying crowd specifically for you, your job is to entertain them with what you know is your best possible stuff. Now, if you're jumping into a show that's already going on and they're not there to see you and you want to try out some things, I think that's so fair because they do need to try stuff.
I just wanted to hear him get angry again, which is what Lewis Black is all about. And he wasn't. He was this calm guy that didn't really catch me. Ellis, last word from you, my friend.
Hey, it's fun. Listen, first of all, can I just flatter you for a second? I mean,
you can. I mean, I have no money to pay you.
Well, that's fine. That's not a problem. I'll do it gratuitously. But I mean, seriously, great opportunity to hang out with smart people, talk about stuff all over the map. You would not put in little, although we're in, technical boxes, little Brady Bunch boxes here. We're not put in conceptual boxes. And folks in the audience may not realize how rare that is because so many of us in the media these days are, we're sort of expected to do one thing, maybe like Lewis Black, expected to do one thing over and over again. And it's just nice to hang out with a few smart folks. And I appreciate you doing all the hard work, Ed.
It's what, something, I've been doing interview shows and the shows that I've been doing for a long time and talking about it. I just said, look, it's about time we just had a show, and I don't care. I'll have left, right, indifferent. It makes no difference to me. And I want people to take it wherever they want and just, promote themselves, do whatever, get it out there, have some fun. Because to me, this is a better conversation that we've had here than when you sit and watch the cable shows and a lot of these internet shows where all they're doing is they're angry and they're pissing and moaning and screaming at each other. At least I think we forwarded a conversation today instead of just being part of the same noise.
Yeah, and people had to think. We all had to think a little bit. That's good.
Stunning what happens when you think. It really happens. I'd like to thank Nick Tate for being here, who unfortunately is not here again, thanks to the internet workers at his home who destroyed his signal. I'm seeing him up in my guest room right now, but I can't see him. He's not there. So
Nick, goodbye, Nick.
Old friend, and he's just wonderful. I want to remind everybody that from Jilly's side of things, on Facebook, it's at Jilly Real. Twitter is at Jilly Real. And the website is thecougarofcomedy.com. And but you're not a cougar. I mean, God, how can you be a cougar at 35
Oh,
years
yes,
of age?
I am, and I'm not 35, so I can thank the wonders of Botox.
Well, that's part of your act too. I've heard part of that with the whole Botox, and I'm looking for it, honey. I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking about making it work real good because if I can make it work, I'm going to be happy. Because look, guys can do Botox too. Trust me on that. Remind you of Ellis Hennigan, who has always been one of my favorite writers. I love wherever you are, I gravitate to it because it's always fun to hear you. Facebook and Twitter, it's at Hennigan, and website is hennigan.com, which just goes to show how damn smart you are because you decided to go away from all the nonsense and just go ahead and go right with your last name. I should have made it Berliner.com years ago.
Well, when you have a weird last name, that's a little easier. So.
You got anything coming up? I mean, are you going to be anywhere?
I'm just cranking. I'm writing columns these days in Dow Jones Market Watch. I'm writing books like a machine, and just arguing on TV, and so that's all. I don't have paying gigs like Jilly where you can pay $50 and come see me, but. I got to keep working. So try to help me out, man.
Keep kicking that up. Go for the $75. Jilly, you got anything coming up? I mean, I know that you're out of LA and you're in South Florida now. Are you performing soon?
Yeah, I'm headlining the Red Light in West Palm Beach on Sunday night.
Okay.
Sweet.
Cool. All right. See, I got to know these things. And now that we're friends on Facebook and I see more things, now I can go ahead and make sure that we are there. Look, I want to thank you guys very much. Thank you for putting up with all of this. Thank you for being part of it and riding with this. And hopefully we changed a couple of minds and hopefully we made some people think. And now, once the show is done, it's early and I'm heading for the cocktails because I'm not that crazy. I got work to do. I got dinner to make tonight. And that's frightening in itself to have me in the kitchen. So
there's always mac and cheese.
All right.
I can't
see you guys.
If I do mac and cheese and my partner comes home and sees mac and cheese in the kitchen, I'm going through a plate glass window. I mean, that's Lady Shannon will take care of that in a heartbeat. Guys, thank you very much. I love you both. Let's do it again real soon, okay? Be well and stay healthy. To everybody here, stay healthy, get your vaccinations, be good to everybody. Don't forget, go to themaninthearena.com. You can see every episode there. Also, go ahead, put my name in on any major podcast platform, and you'll find The Man in the Arena. You'll find Free For All. You'll find it all there. Download, subscribe. Help us all make a couple of $1 million and retire young, will you please? It's what we need. We're entertainers. We got to get out there. We got to make a lot of money. So does everybody else, okay? Thanks to Jilly. Thanks to Nick. Thanks to Ellis. Thanks to you. Until we meet again, I'm Ed Berliner. Rock on, true believers. Say it!
You're still here?
Are you not entertained?
It's over.
All right, hey. All right, good job, guys. Let's just not come in tomorrow. Let's just take a day.
Go home.
I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship.
Go.
That's all, folks.